Hey, welcome back everybody. Before I get into this, let me just say, please check out the last two previous videos. In fact, the previous three videos where I'm covering these storms and these hurricanes, because this is very, very important, guys. It's important that you follow me thoroughly and check out the previous two videos before getting into this one. That way I don't be so redundant. Now, in the previous videos, I showed you and proved to you how NASA is manipulating the weather, attacking its citizens with unnatural cataclysms, and how they are using these space launch systems as weather weapons. I also went into how the attacks on humanity are always spiritual before they are physical. And I'm going to further prove these things. I showed you how all of the technology they're using to create this weather have mythological deities associated with scientific concepts. I showed you why the so-called rockets they use are called a Thor Delta, and they're not rockets, they're weather-making machines. The rockets are going up into the atmosphere and they're making an arch into the ocean. They're not going into space, and I would even add that those rockets are depositing certain things in the atmosphere. Geoengineering is more than just using water vapor to create storms. It's also about seeding certain bacteria and pollutants and different chemicals in the atmosphere. So they're terraforming the earth we live on while telling us they're going to try to terraform Mars. And they're speaking in code right above our head. The mission to Mars is a mission to steer humanity into World War III, and this whole North Korea thing going on at this time is all part of it. All of the governments of the world are in on it together. The only people dying in these wars are the people at the bottom, your children, my children, the have-nots. It's all one big game, and they sending our children to each other while attacking us in the homeland with weather. So again, just to refresh your memory, the code name behind one of the rockets involved in this technology is Thor Delta. Thor being the god that controls weather, Delta being the areas that's under attack, the Delta regions. Again, check out those previous videos and catch up with us. I'm going to get right into this part 3. So many of you weren't aware that prior to Hurricane Harvey, Beyonce released a song called Formation. And in the song, she was supposed to have been paying respect to the Hurricane Katrina incident. But there's a lot of symbolism in the song that shows that this was predictive programming, and she was actually referring to the upcoming Harvey hurricane that was to happen. We know that Beyonce is involved in a lot of predictive programming. If you don't know, then check out my previous video on Beyonce. You remember a while back she did the Ma'at ritual in the Super Bowl. This is spiritual warfare as well as physical warfare. Just look at the name of the song she used in the video. The name of the song was Formation. This is terms that are used when seeding weather. So the fact that she's referring to these man-made cataclysms, and we all know that Beyonce is in the know. She knows that it's man-made. Trust me, she's from Texas, guys. She's a big celebrity from the state that's been hit very hard with these man-made cataclysms. She's a big celebrity. I do believe she's in that elite club of knowers, because this is too close to home for her to be doing this type of symbolism in the videos and then to name it Formation. If you're not convinced, if you look to the left, you can see where the video starts. She's opening up the floodgates. That's a symbolic of breaking the levees, also of seeding this weather at Stennis and other space centers alike. It's man who opens the floodgates and allows the areas to be flooded, not Mother Nature. It's not natural. And this is all symbology to the left, showing you that the elite are the ones who let the water out, who caused the flood through geoengineering. The celebrities are always speaking to us. You just gotta listen. And if you're still not convinced, we fast forward here today, and with everything that's going on, do you think it's a coincidence that at this time they come out with movies like you see to the bottom left? That's a cover of a new movie called Geostorm, and it comes out October 20th. You got to think about everything that's going on And you got to ask yourself, what's up with this movie and all of this programming? What are they telling us? Well, to the right is the weathermodification.com website. It says the proven success of Weather Modification Incorporated in atmospheric and weather operations is evident by our lengthy and impressive client listing speaks for itself. So in other words, it's successful because many people are doing it. Again, agreement by consensus. But we all get the drift here. We already know we're under attack, so we don't even need to be naive and be gullible to any of the rhetoric. You can feel free to pull this up and check it out yourself. The real reason I put this up is because one of my subscribers sent this to me, and here below is a list of clients who are all involved in geoengineering across the United States and abroad. And with these clients, there's a list of projects. This is very interesting. You got the Antigua Cloud Seeding Project here, and you can click on these and see what the project is all about. And you can see all the evil that's going on. In Greece, they have the Hellenic Naval Supply Center involved in the project. It's called a Hellenic Naval Supply Center. Hellenic refers to the Hellenist culture that originated in early Greece. You can see they're dealing with Greek National Hail Suppression Program. And now one thing we really want to pay attention to is the client name on the left and the project to the right. This is where it gets interesting. Now, when you look at the clients on the left and the projects to the right, it shows you all of the projects that client participated in. We see Antigua have one project. We skip down to Canada. They have 4 different projects here. Takes up about a block of space. India, 4 projects here, takes up about a block of space. Then we come down to the United States and look at this. Look at how many projects the United States have. I mean, it just keeps going. Look at all of these weather modification, geoengineering projects that the United States got. I don't think it's any other country on this list that has that many projects going on. And we understand there's also no other countries that's being faced with these cataclysms like we see in the U.S. at this time. The war is taking place in the United States, and World War III has begun. The World War III that you're waiting on is going to be an end result of the war that you're not paying attention to right now. Some people already feel they are at war. They putting the displaced people who are displaced from these weather cataclysms, they're putting them in FEMA camps, y'all. You need to think about that. We always had this idea in our head that they're going to come knocking on your door with machine guns to get you in the FEMA camp. No, they can just send a storm your way, displace you, and have you run into the FEMA camp because you need shelter. So we got to change the way we thinking, people. And I hope you're sharing these videos because this is ridiculous. Look at all the projects that the United States have. There's no one else on this list with this many projects. U.S. citizens are under attack. So many of you who are on a high level of consciousness know that a lot of these volcanoes are possibly man-made. I was doing research on the history of geoengineering, and I found out that even before space centers, they was manipulating the weather by causing fires in certain areas. A lot of smoke going up into the atmosphere will also create rain, and you can control the direction of it by utilizing the Earth's wind systems itself. Man knows that during certain times, certain winds blows in certain directions. Volcanoes can be old forms of SLSs. They can be old systems that they use to control weather with even before NASA. Because when you look at the history of geoengineering, it does say that weather has been manipulated for years. what I really wanted to talk about a little bit more was this movie Geostorm. If you haven't checked out the plot for this thing, it's also a dead giveaway. Geostorm is an upcoming American environmental disaster science fiction action film co-written, produced, and directed by Dean Devlin as his feature debut. Now, science fiction has been around for a lot of years. The whole space program was birthed out of science fiction. The guy who originated the satellite concept was a science fiction writer. I have videos on satellites, please check them out. The rabbit hole goes deep. The reason I'm pointing that out is because the film is about a satellite designer who tries to save the world from a storm of epic proportions by malfunctioning climate controlling satellites. So we know they don't have no satellites, and we know how the weather is being made. I think this right here is part of them selling the satellite idea to the public even more. But the crazy thing about this movie's plot, it actually tells exactly what they're doing. Even though we know the weather ain't caused by malfunctioning satellites, movies like this can put the idea in the people's mind that that may be a reason for the weather when it's so far from the truth, and it'll get them to believe satellites as well as be ignorant to the true hand that's causing this weather. So it'll kill a couple of birds with one stone. That's why these type movies and propaganda is very important, and we see why it's coming out at this time. So the principal photography in the movie took place in New Orleans, Louisiana, of all places, of course. The film is also known for being the first co-production between Skydance Media and Warner Brothers. I just find the name Skydance very interesting considering what's going on. So you go ahead and you read the synopsis and you find out that this movie is a dead giveaway to what's going on right now. In the near future, when climate controlling satellites malfunction and release disaster creating small pods all over the world, Jake Lawson and his other fellow astronauts head into space to prevent the satellites from programming the small pods into creating a storm of epic proportions. Do y'all see how NASA is also linked to weather control and climate control? What does the space program has to do with, for example, NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association? They're all in the bed together. All of these associations control space literally, and NASA is at the foundation of it all because they're the programming. They're what get the people thrown off to what's really going on. So they got you looking at diamond planets and looking above your head thinking about asteroids when really there's huge storms above you that aren't natural, and they're playing God, controlling space by displacing people. And understand the level of deceit here. NASA is linked to weather control. If you look at the previous videos, you'll see why. They control space. Has nothing to do with diamond planets and all that crap. They're a military attacking the people with weather weapons. So you read on here and it say, they soon discover that the disasters weren't caused by a malfunction, but were done with intention, and the only person who has the kill codes to shut down the satellites is President Andrew Palmer. This is deep stuff. They find out in the movie that all of this weather was man-made intentional, and that's what we're finding out now. One of the clients that's participating in this Weather Modification Association is NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. But like I always tell y'all, everything they do is also spiritual and mythological. There's more than one language being spoken. So when you hear NOAA, think about the biblical mythological Noah and think about the flood stories. This government entity is part of the Weather Modification Association. Its acronym is NOAA, and it's responsible for flooding people's land. This government association uses weather modification right along with NASA. Their logo is a dead giveaway. You may not want to link this government association to the biblical NOAA, but it's not a coincidence that their abbreviation turns out to be NOAA, and that the symbol they use is a dove over the ocean, symbolizing the flood. You have the waters above and waters below. We understand that all of these government entities are also mythological and spiritual entities. A lot of their concepts are deities. For example, the Thor Delta concept I went over previously. The names of the hurricanes being gods that are created. These symbols and logos are sigils. They're tapping into different scientific concepts as well as spiritual concepts, and they produce physical results, physical concepts. The National Weather Service has the lightning bolt of Thor, and this is one of the energies that they tap into with these concepts. You can see the lightning bolts here. So you think it's a coincidence that they're called NOAA and that they're responsible for flooding people out of their lands, and that their logo is related to the flood concept in the Bible, and that they're associate of the Weather Modification Association as well as NASA and plenty more. All of this stuff I'm showing you is not a coincidence, people. It's really time to wake up. They've been had the technology to create weather. One thing that saddens me is that they are telling us that geoengineering and weather manipulation is the answer to climate change. They're saying that the reason they're using geoengineering is because of global warming and climate change. I understand how evil they are and what's really going on. And the truth is that geoengineering is climate change. Geoengineering is what allows them to have the power to change the climate. So geoengineering is a big thermostat, and the one who controls that thermostat controls where the people move and migrate on the plane. Imagine a thermostat that can control pressure, temperature, and also steer hurricanes to certain areas. This is power. This is weaponry that wasn't even conceived back in ancient Kemet, if you ask me. We're at a hideous time, people, and I don't want to scare you, but I want to wake you up. I want you to be brave. I have no fears. Knowledge is power. Their worst fear is us waking up to this stuff that I'm teaching in these videos. So share. They're saying that geoengineering is the answer to climate change, when geoengineering is the cause of climate change. So we know that volcanoes can be used to create weather, like I just showed you in the previous picture. If you didn't see that, just rewind it and pause. You can read that little article. You also want to keep that in mind and look at the previous video I uploaded from A Plain Truth. There's 2 videos by A Plain Truth that I mirrored, because he's been covering this stuff and doing a great job. And I recommend all of my subscribers to subscribe to A Plain Truth. You can see that NOAA's objective is volcanic monitoring. You ought to put 2 and 2 together. Think about the videos that A Plain Truth uploaded, showing you in the videos how a lot of these factory plants that's putting heavy clouds into the sky is not pollution. They're seeding weather, and those clouds will find themselves miles away, dropping down rain on some unlucky people that's being targeted. So please watch all of the videos I've been uploading on this topic. This is very important. Why would NOAA's objective be volcanic monitoring? That's one of their objectives, because volcanoes has a lot to do with controlling the weather. Anything that can put off massive amounts of smoke and concoctions into the atmosphere can make it rain down different concoctions. If you start studying what's in rain, you'll see that it's different things that shouldn't be there, because they're using all different water sources, shooting it up into the air, even using wastewater to produce these storms. We're talking millions of gallons of water, and it have to come from somewhere. Water is scarce because of these reasons. They are attacking Mother Nature. We have to spread this information. So when I say that geoengineering is nothing new and that they've been trying to control weather as far as back as the 1800s, and I'll give you a little early history of geoengineering. This is by no means all of the history, but just a brief portion of it, starting with the 1800s. And think about what I told you, that a lot of this is linked to sky gods such as Thor. Science is a form of religion, and in ancient days, the sky gods kept peace on the earth. But the ancients weren't trying to control weather. The gods man are limited to the actions of man. So you see in the ancient world, they had sky gods that were more nice, kind, and that just kept the balance, such as Nut, Ma'at, etc. When you fast forward to more patriarchal times, when the earth is more corrupted, you get sky gods like Thor, which control the inhabitants of the earth by using his power of the sky to wreak havoc on the people. Now, what type of creator will attack its own creation? I don't know. Nature don't attack its own inhabitants. Nature gives us warning for us to move away from the land before it attacks. There are some disasters that happen, but for the most part, nature is peaceful. Nature is mostly balanced. That's why throughout the ancient world, all of the ancient people had a positive concept of the sky god, or the Most High, as we call it today. And as you fast forward time, we think of the Most High as a ruling God that'll do something wrong to you if you don't do what he say, or, whatever. That's more patriarchal concepts. What comes along with these concepts is a science that produces and manifests these gods. The government is ultimately the landlord or the god, and they actually become Thor by creating entities like NOAA that's responsible for floods, concepts like the Thor Delta rockets, which really is weather modification. And nature is what's being hidden because we have an alienated concept of the Most High. So for most of human history, weather control has been under the strict purview of sky gods and science fiction. But today, as superstorms ravage coastal cities and pollution blanket entire countries, averting climate catastrophe has become a serious foreign policy issue. Not that it appears that the world's major powers are making much headway in their diplomatic efforts to stop global warming. Instead, it is falling to so-called geoengineers to game out strategies for deliberate large-scale intervention. Everything from dumping iron slurry into the ocean in order to create massive CO2 sucking algae blooms, to bombarding the stratosphere with sulfate-laced artillery to deflect sunlight. So what we're talking about here is basically all of the technology and patents that they have to manipulate weather. There are so many different apparatuses that they use, and that's why I'm sharing videos from different truthers like Richie from Boston, A Plain Truth. And I will be sharing more because this is a very, very important topic. So it goes on to say, with the world's fate potentially resting on the shoulders of these climate hackers, it's worth recalling the dubious history of weather manipulation. So we know that the Creator have had this place under control and everything has been perfect, and that the Creator never has needed man help with this creation. So man ain't helping the Creator doing nothing. Man is attacking the creation and attacking the Creator's children, displacing people with these man-made storms under the guise of geoengineering is good because climate change is so bad, when geoengineering is them changing the climate, manipulating the weather. I'm reading an article from foreignpolicy.com, and I'm giving you a little history of geoengineering. In 1841, an American meteorologist, James Pollard Epstein, publishes The Philosophy of Storms, in which he lays out his thermal theory of storm formation and details a method through which rain may be produced artificially in time of drought by setting great fires and creating heated columns of air, something Espy lobbies Congress to allow him to do. He argues it would be possible to generate precipitation on command. The scheme, which rests on shoddier science than Espy's theory of storm formation, earns him the moniker Storm King. This is very deep stuff, people, because this article It's called Geoengineering, a Short History, and you have to subscribe to foreignpolicy.com. They make you subscribe. So this is how hacking the climate came to be seen as our least worst option for averting a global climate catastrophe. All of this is propaganda and rhetoric, like I explained previously. We know what's really going on. But the deep thing about what I just read, they was talking about that in the 1800s. They was talking about ways they can cause artificial storm formation by setting great fires in targeted places. So this was in the 1800s. If they was talking like this in the 1800s, can you imagine where their technology with this stuff is today? Exactly. They are controlling weather and they pretty damn good at it. I don't want to waste your time reading this whole page. It's a lot of stuff on here. They give a timeline of geoengineering starting from the 1800s, ending all the way up into 2014. One thing I want to point out before we move on, NASA is involved in geoengineering, and they have been manipulating weather since their conception under the guise of them being a space program. So I said to myself, what year was NASA formed? And as you can see here, NASA was formed in 1958, and it says that they was formed to provide research into the problems of flight within and outside the Earth's atmosphere and for other purposes. When they talk about flight, they're talking about you being launched off of your homeland. So this is something we want to keep in mind. NASA started in 1958, and those of us who are aware now know that NASA manipulates weather with the use of geoengineering. And if NASA started in 1958, we can go to this timeline and see what exactly was happening in the 1950s. That's exactly what I did, and I was in awe from what I found. Not only did it have a parallel to events in the 1950s, but there was one specific date in the 50s. You guessed it, 1958, guys. I just showed you that in 1958, NASA was created. And we know NASA is nothing short of another branch of the military used to attack U.S. citizens with weather weapons and geoengineering. So NASA was formed in 1958. And in 1958, this statement was made, and I read, if an unfriendly nation gets into a position to control the large-scale weather patterns before we can, the result could even be more disastrous than nuclear warfare. Howard T. Orville, which was President Dwight Eisenhower's weather advisor, made this statement in 1958. In 1958, NASA was created, and all of the nations of the earth embarked on a race, not a space race, but a race to see who was going to control weather first. A race to see who would advance this technology of geoengineering first. The space programs are undercover weather control programs, geoengineering programs, and I'm proving it here. Again, NASA originated in 1958, and they told the people that it was about finding diamond planets and alcohol galaxies, when really in 1958, what was on President Dwight Eisenhower's mind was a huge threat. This is what they was thinking about in the 50s, guys. The president's weather advisor quoted, if an unfriendly nation gets into a position to control the large-scale weather patterns before we can, the result could even be more disastrous than nuclear warfare. And this same year that this statement was made, NASA was created. Guys, please put two and two together. There's documents about this stuff. Free your mind, people. And remember, man is not the most high, so fear not. Peace and much love.